What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 33. Today's interview is with Mickaëlle Ruckert, who is a senior VFX artist at Moon Studios and has worked on games like Ori and The Will of the Wisp. She has been a professional in the FX space since 2008, working at studios like Ninja Theory and Arkane Studios, with shipped titles including Dishonored 2, Wolfenstein, Youngblood, and Devil May Cry. Mickaëlle is a well-known speaker in France and is an expert in VFX and art topics at large. I'm so excited to jump into this conversation, so let's dive in.
Welcome to the Real-Time Visual Effects Podcast, the place to hear from some of the video game industry's most seasoned artists and up your game. Listen in on how you can learn and grow as a VFX artist, discover your own wizard, and network with hundreds of other talented magicians in the real-time visual effects community. Here is your host, Travis McCallum.
How do you say your name?
Mickaëlle.
Mickaëlle. Okay.
Yes.
Hey, Mickaëlle, how are you doing today?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm doing really good. It is a little chilly here in Dallas. How's the weather where you are right now?
I don't know. The windows are closed now. It's nighttime, so I don't exactly know. It's been a very, very strange day, actually. When I woke up this morning, the sky was yellow and the light was yellow. And it was like being in a post-apocalyptic movie. And what happened is that there's been some wind and the sand from the Sahara desert came back all the way up to France. And so you've got those clouds with sand inside, and when the light go through it, it lights everything yellow. It's been so weird. I've never seen that. It's really surprising.
Oh my gosh.
So that was the weather today. Very, very special.
That's so surreal, but I'm sure
Completely.
On the flip side, it's like a great VFX observational kind of lesson.
Oh yeah, it changes the mood so much. Just the color of the sky and the color of the light, something unexpected. It was quite interesting.
Mickaëlle, I want to talk all about the awesome games you've worked on, like Ori, but I want you to start us with your origin story. How did you get started in visual effects? What was that initial journey like?
Okay, that's going to be a long story. So, okay, be prepared.
Well, buckle up. Here we go.
Yes, exactly. It all started in 1997, I would say, back when I was 15. In every country, I guess, there's the first meaningful diploma you get around 18. For that diploma, which is called the baccalaureate in France, I studied applied arts. And so that was age 15 to 18. And that was all around, let me think, architecture, graphic design, fashion design, object design. So all sorts of design. And you just learn to think, basically. Like, you don't really produce anything. You just pretend that you have some projects and you analyze the needs and you think about a response. You think about the actual technical way of doing it. So it just, when I look back at what I did back then, everything looks terrible, but it shaped my mind quite early on. Then I studied graphic design for 2 years, got a graphic design diploma. After that, for another couple of years, I was doing a bit of fine arts, then a bit of linguistics, actually. I studied linguistics for 1 year at the university. The whole thing was I wanted to enter graphic design school in Switzerland. And for 1 year, I thought, I really need to work on my personal projects, because this is a part of the application. You have to show some personal work, and the studies I had before just didn't leave me the time to do that. And second year, I just needed to save some money, basically, because it was studying in Switzerland is really expensive when you come from France, anyway.
So what is it that drew you to the arts as opposed to mathematics or engineering or any other field?
Oh, God, I don't know. I think, when I was something like 13, 14, I just liked drawing. This was the original thing. I like drawing, and I thought, I want to do something related with that. And I was quite impressed, actually, because when I went to the applied art at school when I was 15, I had just that vague idea of, I don't know, I like drawing. There's that, special school there. I'll try that. And some of my friends, they were like, I want to be a fashion designer. I want to be a graphic designer. They knew exactly where they were going. I had no idea. I really had no idea. I just wanted to do something to do with drawing or something. So I wanted to get to that school in Switzerland, and I failed actually. And at that point, I was like, okay, what do I do with my life now? Because I've been targeting that for the past 2 years. And at that time, I had some friends who moved to the UK to study, and I thought, well, okay, I'm just gonna hop on the train with them. And that was still around graphic design. I was studying graphic information design. So basically, it's a bit like infographics, really. Just thinking about the way you display your information to try to make it more meaningful. Like the message deep inside is the same, but depending on how you present it, then it's going to be perceived differently. And just trying to be as efficient as you can to convey the message, really the way you want it.
It really draws on a lot of those art theory and art techniques, like where shape language comes in and where's the eye being drawn to on a given piece of paper.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. And also just, like how when you present some how do you call that in English? Some infographics, some little tables showing you values and stuff. If you have a small range, then it feels like the changing is between that and that number is dramatic. If you have a really large scale, then suddenly it feels very small and you're like, it didn't change much. And that kind of stuff really influences the message. So that was just, opening your eyes to this kind of thing. Did that for 1 year. I didn't finish the degree because I had a chance to enter a master's degree at Central St. Martin's, which is quite a renowned school in London. So I was really excited. And I really wanted to study typography actually at the time. I've always been fascinated with typography because I think I like really I like details. I like really precise stuff, and I've always absolutely loved typography. And I thought, wow, designing the perfect shape for an A, that kind of stuff. I really wanted that. But when I applied, actually, they had no room left. Everyone, everything was booked up for typography, and they went, but we have some room in new media, and because this was such a good school, I thought, well, whatever, I just want to get there. And I had never tried my hands at new media. It was always traditional graphic design, and I thought, well, I have an interest in. I know nothing about it. Let's try it. And I told you that was going to be a long story. And around that time, I met my boyfriend, who's still my partner now, and he worked for Ninja Theory. So he's a French guy. We went to the same school. We had been to the same school a few years before that. But we had some common friends, and we really met around there in the UK. And he really, really helped me finishing my final project, which was a short film all in After Effects. Because the thing with the masters is that you'd have some mentoring about the message, about the content, about all of that, but not really any technical help. And I was just learning After Effects and animation all by myself. But my boyfriend, he had been to a school where he had been taught all these things. So he's the one who he was my producer. He was my mentor on the project. He was helping me because he had made a short film for his final year. So he has been through that process, and he really, really helped me.
That's awesome.
It really changed. It changed everything. Like in 4 months, it was a bit difficult at the beginning. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my graduation project, and I was struggling a little bit. And in 4 months, I went from the state of which my project was roaring to finishing something successfully, and I had some good marks and everything. And he really helped through that, and completely learning After Effects from scratch in 4 months.
So I'm curious now, since he had such an impact on the success of your academic career, I was wondering, how did you and your boyfriend first meet? What was that first meeting like? Were y'all classmates? Did y'all meet at a bar, or what was the story?
So what happened is just a little bit younger than me. He's just 4 months younger. But that means that we weren't in the same class in our school. So we knew the existence of each other back at school, but we didn't, we never talked to another, I think, to one another. And so I went to London to study, and he went to Cambridge to work for Ninja Theory. And one of my flatmates used to be in his class. So one day, this guy came to London to pay a visit to my flatmate, and I was there, and then beauty happened.
The rest is history.
Exactly. But good times. But it was quite interesting because we went to the same school, so we kind of come from the same region in France, and we had to go to the UK to properly meet. It's quite funny. But anyway, he worked in the game industry, and very regularly I would come to Cambridge for the weekend, and I would visit. And when people went to the pub on a Friday night, I was always around. So I did know a lot of people from Ninja Theory. And I remember at the pub one day, his lead was like, "So when are you going to join us?" And I said, "How could I? I know nothing about games. I don't know how to make games. That can never happen." And a few months after I graduated, Ninja Theory, so that was an independent studio at the time. It's been bought by Microsoft a few years ago. And they had just, go on.
Oh, I was just wondering, what kind of games has Ninja Theory made?
Oh, so when I was first around Cambridge, they were working with Sony Cambridge, and they were working on Heavenly Sword. So that was a PS3 title. I think it was like quite a highlight for PS3. So probably with the release of a PS3, I would say.
All right, Heavenly Sword, cool.
Yeah. So they had just at that time they had just released Heavenly Sword, and they were going to pitch for their next game, which was Enslaved, and they needed a trailer to show to publisher what the mood was going to be for that game they were trying to make. And if that was happening now, I think the trailer would have been all made in engine, but back then they did everything in Maya, rendered some passes, and they needed someone to do the compositing in After Effects. And so I had done a project exactly, this is where I'm coming. I knew After Effects, and when they started to try and find something, my boyfriend's lead was like, "Oh yeah, let's just ask Mickaëlle," and I got the job. So that was just for a short-term contract, a couple of months. So I did all the compositing, but then that was a first step inside the door, and I got to meet all these people, and they saw how I worked, and they started trusting me, and on the way I learned. So I was still only in After Effects, but everyone was making games around me, and I learned about the process and the teams. Like at first I didn't really understand the difference between the gameplay code and the engine code. It was just, it's all code for me. What does this mean? And so, I started to get that understanding of the structure of the video game company. I learned about the iterative process as well, very early on. I remember that the way we did this, like we had all these passes rendered from Maya. I was putting them together, preparing every shot, then rendering them as TGA sequences, and getting the final TGAs, and added a final touch of just a bit of grain and just a bit of post-process. And so that was then the final render. And the first render I did was called final_01. And when the producer saw that, he laughed and went like, "Okay, you did understand how games work, because there's never such a thing as a real final. There's the first and second, there's third and fourth final." So yeah. And few months later, maybe 6 months later, I was hired as a technical artist. Actually, the title was junior tech artist, because I think it wasn't clear exactly what the needs were at that time, because it was early on the projects. They didn't know exactly. So the job description was very, very broad. Actually, they listed a bit of UI and VFX and mocap cleaning, and I forgot the rest.
What year was this?
2008. Yeah,
Got it.
This is when I really started. It's all that. Yeah, this is when the real start comes from. But everything before is meaningful, because the thing is that nowadays there are many schools for you to learn about games, and back then it didn't exist. And the way I happened to come to games was completely by chance, and everything that comes in before, I think it's all transferable knowledge, because the notions of animation that I had when I did my final year project, when you use that when you do effects, the acceleration, deceleration, the color composition, even all the stuff I studied when I was 15, it does come into play somehow, because it shaped the way I analyze and think about things, and I think, okay, so this is my brief. I need to convey this and that, and this kind of strength and this kind of speed, and how do I do that? And yeah, it's all meaningful. And so yeah, I started in 2008, and soon enough, the project sort of shaped where the needs were going to be. And originally, I was a lot more working on focusing on the HUD stuff. There was a lot of needs for like some upgrades menu and the health bars and this and that. So I was doing a lot of shader work and working with a gameplay coder who was then implementing all of that. And I did a bit of effects, because it's in that game, this is a take on a Journey to the West. And so the character, who's called Monkey, he's sort of trapped with a headband, and someone a girl is controlling him through that headband. It's connected to his brain. So you've got some kind of augmented reality taking place, and I was taking care of all the particle systems to do with the kind of UI-ish augmented reality thing in the game.
And this is for Heavenly Sword, that PS3
No, that was for Enslaved. I joined after Heavenly Sword was finished.
Got it. Enslaved is the game.
Enslaved is the game, yeah. So I did work on the pitching trailer, and the pitch was successful, and they were published by Namco Bandai, I think.
Gotcha.
And yeah, so I did that, and then towards the end of the project, I helped with the cutscene work as well, just placing effects and shaping them a little bit. So that got done, and then the studio started working on Devil May Cry, and they asked me if I was okay with moving, like really specializing in VFX, because they had a plan to outsource all the UI, and they really had a need for more VFX artists. Still, yeah, my partner actually pushed me in that direction, because he was like, you have no idea. VFX artists are really, really in demand. This is so good for you. You'll see in the future. I mean, at the time it felt like, oh, I'm going to waste a bit of time, because I'm going to start all over again from, something I don't master completely. I mean, I knew some bits and pieces, but this is not what I had specialized in. And he said, you won't regret it. And I definitely didn't regret it. I absolutely love it. And on a career sort of thing, there's such a demand for VFX artists. It's unbelievable.
That's awesome. I love hearing your story and how you evolved and always said yes to new opportunities, especially how it led you to VFX today. One thought on that, though, if you're being pushed into a new innovative field that has a demand, how do you know if it's going to be the right fit for your personality and your needs and your strengths, I guess is my question. Because if you feel like you're not going to be happy doing that, is it a good choice to back out, or should you try and stick through and hope it works out for the best? What was your mind going through that?
I really didn't know. I didn't know what to expect, but I had done a little bit of effects, and this is not something where I thought, oh, this is not for me. But I really struggled to start with. Luckily, there was a senior there. His name is Omar Parada, and he really mentored me and really helped me out, because I was so frustrated at first. Like I remember my very, very first effect. It was terrible, and I knew it was terrible. I could feel it, but I didn't know why. I couldn't look at it and go like, oh, well, I just need to adapt, adjust the opacity curve or the velocity or something. I'm just like, oh, it's wrong. It feels wrong. It looks wrong. I know it is, but I don't know why, because I didn't really have the skills. But he really helped me, and soon enough, it transforms from frustration to satisfaction as you learn and master and start to have more control. But it was a bit of a how to say, when you roll the dice, you don't know what's going to happen, but it was all for the best, luckily.
So besides job security, which is an important thing we're all looking for nowadays, what was it that motivated you and kept you going and pushing through all those growing pains of learning VFX that first time?
The pain didn't last for very long, and Devil May Cry was a really nice and fun project, and I had a great team around me, and there was a lot of pleasure and satisfaction, really. It was a long time ago, so I can't remember very well now, but I think maybe it was a bit hard for, say, 6 months or something like that. So in the grand scheme of things, that was many years ago. So I forgot, only the good parts remain in your mind.
Yeah. And I mean, it was a different time than it is today. You had mentorship and people to guide and help you. And you also had real projects to work on. So two things going for you there. For many new artists, they're having to learn in a silo, and they don't always get the benefit of being in a production environment.
Oh yeah, that makes a whole difference. I mean, if you're lucky enough to land the job soon, I mean, can you imagine? This was such an amazing opportunity. I knew nothing about games, but they trusted me. They trusted the fact that I would be able to learn. And I mean, at first, it seemed to just be all, quite natural. But a few days later, I thought back about it after I had left Ninja Theory, sort of when you think, oh, okay, so what happened there? And you just, you look back and analyze that whole period. And from the beginning, I was responsible for the UI, and I had some supervision, but not like a super, super close supervision. I obviously got feedback and everything, but they left me work quite independently and directly with the coder, and I didn't have to go through a big hierarchy chain. And being entrusted this way and having responsibilities, it makes you learn and grow so much, so much more quickly. And I'm so grateful because it helped me so much. Like learning in an actual work environment, if you can do that, this is the very, very best. And obviously, it's not fair to say that to the poor guys who are just in front of the computers and trying to learn FX. But I guess you can find them mentorship on the real-time VFX forums. It's just a fantastic place, and everyone is really supportive of each other. So I guess this is what I didn't have back then. Like this didn't existed. I was lucky enough that I had a mentor sitting next to me. But nowadays, you have all these mentors all around the world, and people really support each other. So I guess this is how you're gonna learn.
And with any skill, Mickaelle, we're constantly learning. Even in VFX, there are new tools and techniques that are being developed every day. So I'm curious, what is your learning style? How do you go about learning a new software or picking up a new technique to add to your VFX toolkit?
I read the fucking manual, the saying, just read the fucking manual. I do that, but I read it from start to finish. I read the whole thing, every word. Like when I learned After Effects by myself, I didn't have a mentor and everything at that time. I bought a book, and there was a collection of famous books by what was it? Chris and Trish Mayer, and they always had a new one for each version, and it was a massive book. It was like, just something really, really heavy, and I read the whole thing. I had read from start to finish, and I was taking notes about the useful stuff and the shortcuts, and I just learned everything, and I knew every shortcut. And this is the tendency I have. Like nowadays, I don't buy books anymore to learn the software. I just read the online help.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm one of these people who really need. God, sorry, my English sometimes. Blah. I read the help files and I read everything from start to finish. And there's one thing I really hate, because sometimes with the tools or like proprietary tools, they're often not commented properly. Like I'm always fighting to get the tooltips. Like at Arkane, we had a proprietary engine, and I would always like enter some bugs to go like, oh, you need to add some tooltips to that feature. Please add some tooltips. Just tell me what the value is, because when you had just the value, okay, from the name, if it's named properly, you can kind of guess what's going to happen. But what is my measurement? What is my scale? What's the range of value? What does it start from and go to? And I need to know that. I hate just pushing the number and going like, oh yeah, it kind of does that. I think I want to know exactly why I'm doing this, and I want to have the result in my mind and work towards the result, and not just happen to come across something. I mean, there are some happy accidents all the time for everyone, but I want to be in control. This is how I learn. I'm a bit of a control freak, I guess. I need to know exactly the ins and outs of my softwares.
So I imagine you preach what you do. So when you create your own effects, you add comments or tooltips for artists that may in the future have to use and repurpose your own effects, correct?
Yeah, I wouldn't really have the occasion. I've actually thought of that. Sometimes I think in a particle system, it would be good to have like just a few comment lines that you could add to explain why you structured it that way, because sometimes you come into someone else's effect and you're like, why was it set this way? And you have to retro-engineer everything. But for instance, in shaders, if I have my nodes, everything is really labeled out and grouped, and I have some subgroups, and I really, that's exactly that. I really try to comment and organize as best as I can. But many tools usually a particle system you can't comment on, which is a bit of a shame. But if you have a blueprint or some kind of a node scripting, all of that, try to comment a lot.
And I'll say, at least from Unreal's perspective, as we're navigating toward Niagara particle systems, there is a tooltip functionality.
Yeah, this is really good. This is so useful. You need that, because I mean, you never work on your own. I mean, there are some companies where VFX artists are the only artists, so they comment for themselves. But actually, even that is really useful, because if you think about the length of a project, you work on something, you're creating it, you know exactly why you did this and that, but you come back to it in 4 months' time. You don't necessarily remember exactly why or where things are. And sometimes you comment just for yourself. And this is super useful, even only to yourself, not only for others.
I want to shift gears and ask you about some of the projects you've worked on, Mickaelle. Can you tell me about some of your favorites and maybe some of the effects that you did in there and why you feel like those showcase the best of your talent?
I guess one of the best times I had was back on Devil May Cry. I was working on all the enemies. We had a bunch of different enemies. And what was really special about that moment is that we were working in a pod structure. So we had 5 people, I think. It was audio, animation, gameplay code, VFX, and design. I think that was it. And we were that little group of 5 people. We were meeting every morning for just 5-10 minutes, just to know what was done the day before, what we were targeted, what if we had any blockers, and I had such a good time because we had that cross-discipline team, and we were really focused towards the feature, which was the enemies. And sometimes, we have different disciplines in games, and it's important that you communicate with the other people from your discipline. But in the end, we all work for different features that are made from all these disciplines. And sometimes there's a bit of a lack of cross-discipline work in video games, and you end up with miscommunication, or sometimes if when everyone's really busy, you're gonna go like, oh yeah, I kind of see there's a problem here, but it's not really my problem because you're just swamped in your own stuff. But when you work in a cross-discipline team, it's never going to be someone else's problem. It's going to be the problem of, that person sitting next to you that you see every morning, and you are really close together, and you bond around a feature rather than just around your own discipline. And that was such a good one. And also we had the person driving that was the designer. She's called Rani Tucker, and she's absolutely amazing. She had such a good energy, and she drove that energy, and where everyone was really, really positive about what we were doing, and she's really clever as well. So you trust her judgment, and then that really helped as well. I think when you work with cross disciplines like that, it's so important that someone is the owner. Otherwise, it's a bit floating because one person doesn't really have a say more than the other because we all kind of at the same level. But someone has to own it in the end and make the final call judgment and drive that thing. This is how it works the best, I think. And this is some of the best memories I had. I had a similar time actually at Arkane. There's so I worked on Youngblood, Wolfenstein Youngblood at Arkane, which is normally made by Machine Games in Sweden. But because both studios are owned by the ZeniMax group, sometimes one studio helps out another depending on, if you don't need the whole team. VFX are known to come a bit later in the project because so many things have to be brought first. So if your team is not too busy, I mean, there's always R&D and that kind of stuff to do.
Yeah.
But if you're not overly busy, then maybe you can help out another studio that needs more hands at that time. So we did help out up until alpha on a few maps and a few features. And so in-house at Arkane, we were developing one of the weapons. And same, it was a small team at Arkane with the designer, me, and the gameplay coder. So I was working with Benjamin Jacquin and Jérôme Braun, just in case they listen to it. This is just a little high. And we had same thing. It was when you have a good vibe and a good energy between people, this is when you have the best of times, I think. The work just flows better.
Awesome. Now that you've been in the industry for a while, what are some of the big trends that you're seeing in 2021 for visual effects?
This is a bit maybe off topic, but I have the feeling that remote work is going to be changing a bit. Like a few years ago, I couldn't imagine working remotely for VFX because it's very often you have to work within the engine, and this is not like you can outsource a character or props or maybe a rig quite easily because this is an asset that you import into the game. But all the effects, they are really inside the game. This is the core of the game. This is the core of the engine. And I thought, wow, I'll never be able to work remotely. This is something I've considered for quite a while because I'm at a stage in my life where I don't want to relocate. I have my family that is not too far from where I live. I have a daughter, I have a house, I have all these adult grown-up things that keep me in one place. So if I want to change a job, it has to be, by working remotely. And a few years ago, I thought, this is never going to happen to me. This might happen to my partner because he's a character artist. But me, it can never happen. And actually, it happened. And now with COVID and all the companies having to find a way to get people working from home and actually finding out that, it's possible and does work, then I think this is really changing something in the industry. And maybe I'm wrong, but I really have the feeling that more and more roles are considered as a remote role.
I couldn't agree more. I think that remote work, if anything, has increased productivity with less interruptions. I can't tell you how many times people have just stopped by the desk and brought up a random water cooler or social conversation. And while I definitely enjoy those, sometimes it pulls me away from my deep work, my flow state. So if there was a way to like make a bit of a hybrid approach in the workplace where you can do the remote thing, but still have time to like do team bonding, that would be the dream.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I have the feeling that maybe if I see what people think around me in other companies, not in mine because Moon Studios is entirely entirely remote. There's no actual offices. Everyone works from their home in their own country. But from the trends that I heard around me, some people, they're really eager to go back to the office, and often it's more like people who don't have children yet. They live in flat. Maybe they're single. They need the office space, and they really need the people because they're just getting crazy in the little flat. But once you start to, like, for instance, at home, I have an actual office. My office space is separate from sort of the living space. It's upstairs. It's completely separate, and so I can separate my work time from my my actual life. I can switch off and go to something else after that and live my life. If you don't have that and your computer is in your bedroom, then yeah, working from home is definitely not as nice. But many people who I know, many friends who have children, have a nice workspace and all of that, they don't really want to go back to the office. They just feel good because they can avoid the commuting. They can be a bit flexible and drop their kids at school more easily because it's next doors, and then they just jump in there on the chair rather than having to drive for an hour in the traffic jams, because this is the time where everyone goes to the city. But I guess these people, they would be quite happy to just go to the office once or twice a week. So because we still we usually, you have friends at work. This within the video game industry is a place where people are quite friendly to each other, and there's a good ambience at work. So I guess if the studio listens to all these queries and they have the technical means to make it work, then maybe it will happen, as you're saying, more and more as a hybrid between moments where you're at home and you can really, really focus on the work, get things done, and then the days you go to the office and it's more about all the meetings and talking to each other and preparing the work.
What are some of the big challenges that the visual effects industry is facing right now? And you as an artist, what do you feel like those are?
I think this is something that was always around, maybe not not specifically now, but I guess what's difficult with VFX is that there's so many aspects to VFX. It can be a bit daunting, especially when you start, because it can range from, hand drawing things and animating frame by frame images, or doing fluid simulations and very realistic shaders and lighting and really, you can have some destruction as well. You can have something that is very technical, or just something really pretty and not shader heavy. It's the range of skills is absolutely huge. And even if you're not trying to create really something complicated, you need some textures. What are you going to use? Are you going to use Substance or Photoshop or whatever software, or just drawing it by hand? Then you get to the engine, then you have to make a shader, then you have to animate your particles, then maybe you have to plug that into a blueprint. If you go to Niagara, this is a whole other set of skills, and there are so many different levels where that can come into play and intertwine, and you have so many skills that you need to master that it's quite intense. It's a bit like tech art, I guess. Tech art is quite similar in the sense that it's super broad. What is tech art? In one company it's going to be rigging, in another company it's going to almost be VFX, or it's going to be post processes, or really technical shaders, and some of the tech artists are actually coders, and some others are more artistic, and it's probably the same with VFX, I'd say. And this is a big scope and can be intimidating. But I think as a beginner, it must be incredibly scary. I think I was lucky because I happened to learn everything on the job, and I didn't have to ask myself these questions. Everything just, flowed and happened quite naturally. But if you were just there and you have that wall in front of you that is VFX, and you're like, oh shit, where do I start? How? And I guess what you need to understand is that you don't have to know everything. And even people who have been in the industry for many, many years, nobody knows everything. You can't be a master of, maybe there are a few geniuses out there, but I'm not one of them. You can't know everything about everything. And it's okay. You'll know what you need for that job. And if you go to another job, then you'll just learn the other things and you just adapt and evolve on the way, and it's all going to be okay in the end.
I'm always amazed at how there's such a huge demand in the market for visual effects artists right now. Yet anybody that wants to get in is struggling to even get their foot in the door for even an interview or an art test. And a lot of it comes down to that these companies, they have such high expectations for the quality, the standard, the bar of what is good enough to get in. Like lots of artists out here, these juniors, these aspiring ones, they have an idea of how to make effects. And I'm always blown away by these people who have these amazing reels and can manage to develop those skills in less than a year. Because for many, they have to commit 2, 3, even 4 years before they're even, quote, good enough to be even considered by studios. So I just wonder often, and you don't have to answer this, I wonder how can people learn this craft without, in addition to a day job? Like how do they build a system or a habit of being able to make that transition from, say, a job waiting tables at your local restaurant or cafe and getting their first gig at a company?
Yeah, I guess it must be very, very hard. I suppose once again, maybe the forums can help, because with all the monthly events, then it gives you a bit of a context. This is what you were saying, before about being able to learn in a professional environment, as I did, was amazing because I had an actual contest. I was working in a game. Well, I guess it's not in game, but the events give you an excuse, something to try your hands at. Okay, I don't know how to approach that thing. How am I going to do it? And this is probably most interesting because it will get you out of your comfort zone, and it will make you have to think about something you had not considered and find some response to that. I guess this is one way of doing it. But if you're saying that companies are not ready to, this, what, I don't really understand it, because if you hire a junior, you know what you're in for. A junior cannot master everything. But for me, if you hire a junior, you hire based upon the expectations you have from where that person can go. If I was to hire a junior, I would hire more. I never was in that position, but I would imagine I would hire based off the potential of someone, not necessarily of the skills right now, but what I can read through that person. And for me, the soft skills are just so important. I've seen some guys. I heard about it. Like some programmers were really acing at the test, but they didn't get hired in the end because in the interview they were just clearly people you couldn't work with. We usually have big teams in video games, and if a person cannot work with the others, however skilled they are, this is just not going to work out. So you need the actual technical skills, or artistic skills, but you really need soft skills as well. Being able to communicate with people, just being, a nice person all around, a good human being is important.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's a big philosophical question, but what do you feel like is the biggest contribution that we as visual effects artists can do in our profession today? What is our purpose for existing?
I guess, inside of the game itself, very often, more often than not, this is for me, effects are what make the gameplay happen, because more often than not, the gameplay is a bunch of numbers and data, like the size of an area of damage, the fact that this type of weapon cannot work on this enemy because he's shielded against this ability. And these are just numbers. It's all data and numbers. And how do you view that? Usually, very often, there's everything. There's also, I don't want to undermine the other disciplines. There's animation, there's the characters, there's the texturing, there's all of that. But there's a lot of VFX, and I think without the effects, the game often doesn't really happen. You can't feel it. Like, where's the area of damage? What type of damage is it doing? Is it what kind of element is it? Is it fire? Is it electricity? Is it ice? What size is it? Is it really powerful compared to another? Can you imagine if you shoot a weapon and there's no muzzle flash? It's just a bit. Doesn't really happen. and this is like, if you have a silent weapon, you want that really subtle small muzzle flash. But then if you're just destroying everything, you want the satisfaction of seeing that really big, powerful visualization. And I think it's really really important to convey the gameplay to the player. I think we do communicate a lot with the effects.
Absolutely. And I'm just wondering if you could maybe share an example of one of those visual cues from an effect that you've made, maybe with Ori.
Let me think. Well, I worked on the bosses, for instance, on Ori. Worked on all the bosses, and what was it? For instance, I have one example. For instance, you have a really big owl you're fighting towards the end, and it's got a whole bunch of attacks. And one of them, during one of them, the owl is flying off screen, and it's going to come inside the frame and just land on you and smash you. And so, as a player, you want to know a little bit about the attacks coming in. So you need that anticipation. Very often, the anticipation comes from three things: the animation, the sound, and the effects. You don't always have an anticipation effect, but more often than not, you do. In that case, obviously, you could have some sound, but you couldn't rely on the animation. You couldn't have a special wing or head movement telling you, oh, I know she's going to do this attack because she was off screen. So the VFX were quite important there, and we had quite a bit of back and forth, because originally I had something quite subtle. I thought, well, she's going to land there, so surely if she flaps her wing, then you have a bit of dust rising, and this is quite grounded within the game, but it was just too subtle, and designer pushed me to do something more visual. So I had some flares and rock rising, and when you see that, I have to escape really quickly because in 1 second she's going to land on me. This is the kind of thing where your effects is really warning you and telling you what's going to happen in the design.
That's great, Mickaelle. That's great. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me about any role models, VFX or not, with people or companies that have inspired and influenced you in your own work?
I don't have one person I could quote. I guess because we've talked talked a lot about the past. Maybe when I started, actually, there weren't as many tutorials as there are now, but on After Effects, there were the tutorials from Andrew Kramer. And I really love Andrew
Kramer.
He's amazing, isn't he? Because he was really able to teach you something, but he was such a pleasure to listen to, and he was really funny. And actually, that was probably one of my early role models, because every time there was a new tutorial, I was like, oh yes, this is, it's almost like watching a film or something. You not just learn something, you take pleasure in the process. It's so fun watching him and listening to him.
My short film last summer, Pandemic Life, actually uses one of his tutorials, the lightning arcs that he made in After Effects. So the thing I like about Andrew so much is his teaching style for YouTube. And like you said, when he educates people, he's also entertaining them at the same time. So those are the kinds of like real-time visual effects tutorials I wish I could see more of sometimes. I know everybody has their own personality, but man, if only Andrew was doing that.
Yeah, that would be quite amazing. But I guess honestly, I mean, I've never done a video tutorial, but it must be so much work. It's just unbelievable the amount of preparation you need to do that, and to not stumble on your words, just like I actually did right this second, and have a good flow to know that people are going to understand everything, and just focusing on that solely is probably a huge amount of work. So being fun on top of that, oh wow, I can't even imagine. I couldn't do that. I don't think I could.
I'm just saying, if you want, Jason Kaiser and Urban over at Rebel Way are always looking for new instructors. So you want to?
Yeah, you know what? I'm not a fun person. I'm very boring. I would be just talking about the tool tips and the values, and just be careful because this value interplays with this one in that way. No, I wouldn't be a fun instructor. I'm telling you, very tedious and boring.
So tell me then, like, what is a day in the life of Mickaelle like from sunrise to sunset? I'm sure it's not boring.
Oh, it's very boring, actually. I mean, I have a typical adult life. Actually,
what time do you normally wake up? Are you an early bird or a night owl?
I'm more of an early bird, yeah. Because anyway, life makes it happen. I have a 4-year-old daughter. I can't wake up late. She has to go to school and everything, and have breakfast and brush her teeth and get dressed. And she doesn't do that by herself, because if you leave her for 10 minutes with the clothes ready, and you just go and have a shower for 10 minutes at the same time. I did that the other time. It was easy. I mean, she's 4 years old. She knows how to get dressed. She has all her clothes laid out. 10 minutes later, she was just wearing socks and underwear, and she had some paper crown on her ears. And it's just like the most random things happen in the morning when you leave your child unattended. So yeah, you have to be there to take care of them. Otherwise, they would never get in school. But yeah, actually, the day-to-day life has changed a lot over the past year or so, because like now Ori is finished, is out the way, so I can have a more normal life, I would say. So I guess, yeah, I usually wake up around 6:30. Then I'm going to prepare breakfast. Oh, actually, it depends, because at the moment, my partner also works from home because of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes he takes her to school, sometimes I take her to school. So, well, there are different options. Either I take care of her, I take her to school, we all have breakfast together. And then if I'm not the one taking her to school, I can start my work day around 7:30. But if not, I mean, she starts school at, we need to be at school at 8:20, so I'm going to start a bit later on these days. Then usually I work till 12 p.m. or 1 p.m. depends. These days I'm trying to get back into shape. I used to exercise a lot when I didn't have a child and I had a lot more times on my hand. I used to go to the gym every lunchtime for many years, and yeah, for like 4 years now, I really didn't do much, and I'm trying to get back into shape. So usually I try to fit like 20 or 30 minutes exercise, and lunchtime I find is the best time, because I can't really do that early in the morning, because you have to be there and take care of your child. And actually, there was a time where I thought, well, I can just exercise before she wakes up, but that it makes some noise and it wakes her up, so I can't do that. That's not working. Yeah. In the evening, you get a bit lazy and tired, or anyway, you have to take care of your child. So lunchtime is just the best time. I've had breakfast a long time ago. I don't have my stomach completely full, so I can move and exercise a bit. So yeah, then have a shower. That's a lot better after exercise. Quick lunch. Usually we just I don't know, we just fix up something really quickly. Either we have something from the day before, or we just put some vegetables to cook over the how do you call that? You just steam. No, it's a steam. You just steam some vegetable quickly. Something that doesn't require a lot of work from you. They just there and cooked, and we have something like that, and then go back to work till I don't know 5 or 6, and then I go to pick her up at school if I wasn't the one dropping her in the morning, and then. I don't know. We try to spend a bit of time with her, but soon it's it's dinner time and shower, and you take her to bed and you read. These days I'm reading bedtime stories, but for a long time she demanded that I invented some bedtime stories, and she had that thing when she was like, "Okay, I want a story with." The most random thing. Usually she would look around her, but sometimes she would come up with weird things like, I want a cucumber, I want a hedgehog, and I want a rock. And you have to tell me a story with that. And some days you're inspired, and some days it's just, I don't know. You wing it, and it's just terrible. Yeah. But it's an interesting exercise. It's definitely, pushing up your creativity, because sometimes you're like, okay, I have no idea how to make this work together, but you want me to. And at least, she's a good audience. She never questions my choices. And sometimes I can hear myself and I think, well, this is terrible. It doesn't make sense, but she's okay with it. She accepts it. I'm okay. And once she's in bed, then this is when your life begins. For a few hours. So usually we watch a film or we watch some series together. Sometimes we play a bit of board games because we have a lot of them, even some that you can play with just two people. It's nice to have a bit of a change, not just be in front of the TV all the time. But these days I'm playing a lot of Zelda. I'm finally getting to play Breath of the Wild. And I love it. I'm just going through every little side mission. This is really something I enjoy. So I'm spending a lot of time on that. Usually, my partner is watching a film and I'm kind of listening to the film, but really I'm playing Zelda these days.
That is a full day. You really keep yourself busy.
Yeah, this is why I was saying, it's kind of dull. Like, I do a bit of everyday chores and I do my job, but this is what life as a parent is. It gets quite busy. Oh, and I have some laundry breaks as well. Sometimes I have a laundry break during the day because I quite like optimization, and I optimize everything in my everyday life, not just my work. So we have those really big windows. They're called French windows in English, I think. I don't know why they're called French. The windows where you can open like a door and you can walk out. And so we have those massive windows at home. So when there's a bit of sunshine in the winter, if it's freezing outside, it gets really hot in the house because the sun comes in. And so when I see that, I'm like, oh, I need to optimize on that heat, and I need to put on the washing machine now so that it can get dry and I can make the most of the sun. So I have laundry breaks sometimes.
A side question: How do you like your house to be, cold or warm? What do you got the thermostat at?
Well, it won't mean a thing to you because that's Celsius. usually around 20 degrees, maybe 22. The thing is, well, once again, we have a I don't know how it's called in English. We feed some wooden pellets to that burner, and it heats up the house. It's like a pellet burner. I don't know exactly.
Okay.
And so this is how the downstairs is heating up, and upstairs we just have some electrical heaters, and sometimes it can get really cold upstairs in the morning. It's like again, not meaning much to you, 15 degrees in the morning or something. Well,
I saw 20 Celsius is about 68 Fahrenheit, so it's a little on the chilly side.
Yeah, so sometimes it's really chilly upstairs in the morning, but then I look up the the weather, and if I know that the sun is going to, to really shine in a couple of hours, I'll wrap myself in a blanket. Actually, I'm wrapped in a blanket right now as I talk.
Okay.
I wrap myself in my blanket because I know that I don't have to put the heater on, because in 2 hours it's going to be super warm and I'm going to wear some shorts and t-shirts. So I like to just think that, I've saved something for the planet, and I've let the sun heat the room for me. And it's okay if I was cold for a couple of hours and wearing my blanket and drinking tea to warm me up, because I've saved something. Quite like that feeling.
That's what I always tell my girlfriend, is at least with the cold, you can just put on more layers. But when it's hot, you can only strip down so far.
Oh my God, tell me about it. That's the thing. When you work from an office, you have some air conditioner. And I don't have one at home. I mean, I could buy one, but this is not something I really want, because, somehow it just makes the situation worse if you burning energy and spitting out all your heat outside. So I try to live through it. I just bought how do you call it? Ventilator? No, a fan. I just bought a really nice fan, a Dyson, really fancy, very fancy fan. And this is the only luxury I authorized myself. But then, it can get super warm in the office, like 31, 32 degrees. And the trick I found was to wear wet clothes. I would just take my t-shirt and make it just completely wet, and wear the wet clothes, and then it would slowly dry on me, and I would feel a little less bad and a little less hot. This was my special trick I found during the summer.
All right, I want to ask you about something. You have had the distinct pleasure to work on some high-profile game franchises across a variety of different studios, and I know that each workplace has its own process to achieve their goals. On your personal VFX journey, what have you discovered about your own preferences with collaborating and communicating with coworkers, and in your solitary work mode to get stuff done? I know we talked briefly about the pod idea, but I was wondering if you could expand a little bit, maybe in comparison to some of the other companies you've worked for over your time.
I guess, what I really like is when you have some good communication with the other people in the other disciplines, because I think, as a VFX artist, from my experience, the people I talk to the most are probably the gameplay coders, because they're the one that are going to implement everything that you do. So you need to talk to them to know how the feature works and where are the hooks, and to really understand the data flow. This is something that is very important to me. I really want to understand how the game functions, and I think I can't do my job properly if I don't. I need to understand where the data is and where it goes afterwards, and where your effects gets hooked into the system. So I think you need a really, really good collaboration with your gameplay coder. And often as well, maybe originally they have an idea of how this should function, but you realize that for your effects to work, you need that extra little thing, or you need a delay there that wasn't planned for, or I don't know, you need code to drive a certain value that you're going to expose for them, or that kind of stuff. And I think, the way it works the best is just if you have a good communication and a good feedback loop with other people. It's so important to get feedback as well. I think, as talented as you can be, you can't just work in a bubble, and you need some external eyes to just help you take a bit of distance, because sometimes when I don't know how many times you see an effect that you've worked on, but more often than not, it's something really short. Maybe it's 1 second. I wonder how many times you see that loop through the day. Can you imagine if you work on one effect for 8 hours and it lasts for 1 second? You see that thing so many times, that after a while it's so hard to judge it, especially I think usually you start, okay, you have an idea what you want to achieve. And maybe you get some feedback and someone goes, no, actually, this is not the direction we had in mind. Just do something like that instead. And if this happens many times, then you don't know what you're doing anymore. After a while, if people push me too much in one direction and then another, I don't own it anymore, and I don't manage to have feelings for it in a way. I don't feel it, and I think I work my best when I feel something. But if I don't really understand the purpose or the intent or where this is going, and I'm just pushed right and left towards one direction that I don't understand, I'm not going to do a very good job. And this is where you really need the help of others, someone that has a different eye and helps you understand what you're trying to do or where what you're doing is wrong.
That makes sense. I want to piggyback off of your time on Ori and the Will of the Wisp. I know you did so many different effects, and as we mentioned earlier, each effect has its own piece of knowledge that you have to learn. Everything from the destruction effects to the transition effects, like entering and exiting water. How do you keep yourself organized and attuned with this idea that you eloquently say, I want it to not only look beautiful, but also feel right?
Did I say that? I don't even remember. Yeah, I said that?
Yeah, you did in your LinkedIn profile.
Really? Oh my God, I wrote that so long ago. I didn't even remember. Oh, okay. Well.
I thought it was a nice piece of poetry.
Thank you. Wow. I didn't remember. Good thing. I guess, well, you need to watch some reference. Even for a game like Ori, which is very stylized. For example, I worked. There are different areas in Ori, and one of them is all about water in the lagoon. So I did a lot of underwater effects, and so I just watched some footage of bubbles, of underwater explosion, of all sorts of underwater movements, because I don't think this is actually underwater effects I had done much of. I had done maybe one underwater explosion, so I had to study it basically. So you just watch the movement of the bubbles, and you try to get a feel for it, and you find that pace of initial strength, and it gets slows down by the pressure, the force of the water. You just get that kind of feeling. And then if you want your next effect, you move on to something like a boss landing, like we said earlier, and you want something a lot more powerful and heavy and massive and explosive, then you look at maybe some I don't know, building destruction or something which is massive scale, and you try to get a sense of what speed the dust is going to move at when it's a really big scale. Or I think just reference is the best thing, and I like to look at real references, even if it's a bit unrelated, like I'm saying, a building destruction for a boss that is a beast and has nothing to do with it. Then I'd rather do that than watch some game references, because the game has already gone through the interpretation of someone, and it's serving something for the game, which is not the same purpose as yours. So I quite like real world references rather than games references.
That is such a good point. When we're observing nature and we're trying to create new effects, using real world references is the best opportunity, because when we're using gameplay or other game effects, that is the interpretation of the artist. I'm just reiterating what you're saying, but I'm making a point that don't reference other game stuff, and I never know like how to go about that when you're like applying at a game studio or you're working on an effect at a game studio and they're like, we want you to make effects like how League of Legends does it. What does that mean? Like, how are you supposed to interpret that, you know?
I don't know how often it happens though. I mean, I was never told, make the effects like this game. So maybe I was just quite lucky with that. But I wonder if some places actually do that. I don't know.
You have done some amazing work as a public speaker, and there was actually a GDC talk you did on VFX, specifically for 2 games, Devil May Cry and Dishonored 2. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that presentation and what it took to prep for it, what the content was, and what the reception was, and how it made you feel.
Okay, so it happened. So that was for 2008. And on the forums, the organizer for this year, who was Fred Hopper, can't remember how to pronounce his name. He just went, oh, okay, so what are the topics you would like to the speakers to approach? And then I thought, oh, maybe I can just talk to him and suggest some topics I'd like to talk about, because so I only worked for 3 companies so far in my career. I spent 5 years at Ninja Theory, then 5 years at Arkane Studios, and a year and a half at Moon so far. And so back then I was still at Arkane Studios, so I knew only 2 different places, and one of them was where I had learned the job actually. So I could compare only between those 2 places. And so when it's your first job and you even learn the craft on the job, you don't know any other way of doing things. This is just, the one thing you learned, and this is your world, so to speak. And then you change company, and then you realize there can be a complete different way of doing things and a complete different approach to it. And I remember I had this is something I'm saying in the talk, I had one like epiphany moment. And I was working on a weapon, and I had made it's like a sort of a flashlight explosion, just something that doesn't really damage but stuns the enemy. So you need a big explosion of light. And so I was making that, and the art director was like, yeah, it's not bad, but it needs to be more messy, because this is just too neat and too clean and too regular. The context of that weapon is that it's not something that is industrially created. It's something that a gang of thugs is building and making with scrap material in the cellar, and so it can't function as a professional, really well crafted thing. It has to be a little bit messy. It has to feel like it should almost not function, and it's really lucky it functioned this time. So he wanted more, more noise, more little sparks coming in wrong direction and that kind of stuff. And this is where I realized that things are very different now than they were in my previous place, because I was working on, the last game I did was Devil May Cry, and it's originally a Japanese license, and so the effects are a lot more about something really neat, and the hero is supposed to be super cool and really in control. So you're not going to make an effect that goes and just breaks into pieces or something. It has to go be really sharp and that kind of stuff. And so yeah, it really made me think, when the art director told me that at Arkane, it really made me think about how I use those properties that are exposed to me, and how to add layers to my effects, but to just make things a little bit more messy. So this is the base of the talk actually, how do you approach making effects on 2 different licenses in 2 different places, and you're not trying to convey the same sort of feeling. and there are something that you are going to be doing differently, but there's always some core elements that are going to just be the base of VFX, and that you know some knowledge that you can really reuse from one place to another. So that's for this talk, and then the story around it is. So I proposed that to Fred, who was happy about it. So then I went on to prepare the talk, and I think I made some mistakes from the beginning, because I had a blog at the time, so I was used to write some articles to share the knowledge I had, and so because I was used to do that, this is how I started taking notes. I started taking notes like I was going to write an article, and making a presentation and speaking to people and showing slides is completely different. So I spent a lot of time creating some content which was not designed the right way. I think if you have to make a presentation, I'd say just start directly on your slides. Don't take too many notes. Take the notes with your slides, just, at first, maybe just add a few bullet points or add a few pictures or that kind of stuff, and just really get a feel for how it flows as a presentation. I had a lot of support at Arkane about that talk, and I was giving the talk to my two colleagues, and at first they were like, "Yeah, it's incredibly boring. You almost got us asleep there," and they were completely right, because the problem is, as I said, I had started by writing that wall of text, and you can hear that I just talk a bit a lot, and I just talk and talk and talk and talk, and it felt like I was reading my text and I wasn't really living it. And I thought, well, that's true. Why am I doing this? I mean, I know what I want to talk about. I made the content. So there's a point where I just destroyed all the notes, and I looked at the slides I had prepared and went like, what is it I really want to say? Just, go a bit more straight to the point and just talk to the person that is going to be in your audience, rather than talking to yourself in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think also, if you make a presentation, it's important to outline from the beginning, like the different things you want to say, because I spent a lot of time preparing some content that I didn't use in the end, because I didn't know exactly where I wanted to go. I had different options, and I wanted to say a bit too much as well, because I had the feeling that, I don't have enough content and people are going to get bored and they need more, they need more information. And then I was driving, off topic a lot, because I thought, maybe this can lead there and this can lead there. And people were completely lost in the flow of the presentation. So I prepared all those slides and content, because I wasn't making some new material. I was reusing stuff from the game, but just doing the captures, doing the screenshots, setting up the map so it works properly, and all the cheats, and making sure you're hiding all the debug text and this and that. It takes forever, and compressing it properly so it can fit in the PowerPoint. It takes a lot of time, and I created all that content that I never used because it was just not really fitting for the presentation. Yep.
It's funny to hear that, because every time I do an art test, I do exactly what you're just saying. Yeah. And every time I do it, I'm like, retrospectively, this was a waste of time. All they wanted to do was see the quick video of the effect that they asked you to do. They didn't want to see a huge presentation.
Yeah. And I think for the presentation, what I found as well is you really have to focus on the flow of your presentation. The interesting thing we had is all the speakers would communicate together. All the one appearing at the VFX bootcamp of that year, and then we could we would exchange our slides and give each other some comments. And from other people's comments on my presentation or on other presentation, I found that the flow of the presentation is really important. Like, people who watch it, they really need to understand why you saying this now? Because sometimes you can be distracted for a second, and you need to be able to jump back in the presentation and go like, oh yeah, of course he's talking about this because before he was there, and next he'll go there, and you need to really have a clear flow and not just go all over the place. It's really important if you want people to stay with you and not just lose
and I know the structure maybe at GDC is people save questions till the very end, but for some presentations, like they have those open questions where you're in the middle of talking of a slide, somebody raises their hand, you got to stop what you're saying to address them.
Yeah, sure. And so if your presentation flow is not clear, then you're really going to lose people on the way.
Did you ever find like what was it the core message or the core takeaway you wanted the audience to get from that presentation?
I guess let me remember, it was a few seconds ago now. I think it was just about things are going to be different in one place or another, and really what you need is to keep an open mind. Don't just stay on, oh, this is the way I do things and this is the way I want to do things. Just listen to what others suggest and analyze the game that you're doing and really think about the needs of the game. Like, what is it you're trying to convey? What's the mood? Analyze all that and try to make something that really works for the game, not necessarily for you. You don't, you just have to adapt to your game basically, because this is a product. You're working for a product, and you need to use your skills to make it work as best as possible as an object in a way.
I know that I mentioned in my episode on Square Zero and with our New Year's resolution going into 2021 that we all need to live a balanced life, that VFX alone cannot define us as individuals.
Yeah.
So to you, Mickaëlle, I understand that you have a life that is not just VFX. In fact, you actually do a lot of drawings, not just any drawings that you have displayed across different online art museums like Saatchi Art. I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit about this side project that you're doing.
Actually, it's funny that you mentioned work-life balance. If I can just talk about something like the end of Ori was really, really tough. There's been a lot of crunch to finish that game, and there's been a long period of my time where I was actually only defined by effects, and there was nothing else going on with my life, and definitely this is not the best way of doing things, and it's important that you can be something outside of your work, because then you just end up in that little bubble of nothing else happens, and every day is the same. Oh, sure, you're going to work on a different task, but everything is always the same. And it's so good to have some different interests. And as you're saying, so I'm doing those drawings now that I can have a life outside of work, and it's just you can get some inspiration, and sometimes it's going to feed your work as well. Getting inspiration from anything, from doing your own thing, or so for instance, because I do drawings, I also watch a lot of references from other artists, and a website like This Is Colossal, which is a famous one, and they just list bunch of different artists, and it can really open your eyes, and you see some sort of animation with beautiful colors, and suddenly it resonates, and you're like, oh yeah, this is such a nice color scheme. I can use that in my day job, and that kind of stuff. As for the drawings, I can get sidetracked so easily. It comes back, I think, to what I was saying. When I was young, I wanted to do typography, and I like really small, precise things. So I do some abstract drawing with a pen, or even better, I like to do it with ink and a quill. and it's just the process itself is so nice. I like making lines with the quill because it's just it's so soft on the paper. It's a really good feeling. It's something we don't really have that when we work with a mouse, a keyboard, and a tablet. It's nice to do something physical, have a physical touch to things, and choose the paper that you want, and that is a different. Sorry, I don't express myself very well. There's a different feeling on the of the quill on this or that paper, and it's just so it's nice and physical. It's a good change.
Absolutely. What's your daughter's name?
She's called Nelly.
Nelly. You were telling us about how you would tell bedtime stories to Nelly.
Yeah.
And in fact, earlier in her youth, you actually had to make up stories. You weren't actually reading the kids' books, but you told me that you are also doing kids' stories. So is that something that maybe you are looking to write your own book someday? Or?
Oh, I'd love to actually, because it's I've also I've always had an interest in writing. I read less now because I don't have as much time, but I was a massive reader for all my youth, and I quite liked writing as a child and as a teenager. And I've always had it in the back of my mind. I was kind of for a period of time as well, maybe 10, 15 years ago, I had a blog, and I was trying to write some just small pieces of text, just for me as a training exercise. And so she demands some new made up stories, and sometimes they are terrible, but sometimes like, oh, actually maybe there's potential. I quite like the story. So I take a lot of notes afterwards, because you invent a new one every day, so you forget about them quite quickly. And I have all those notes, and I'm trying to make something more properly finished. So I have a few I have finished, maybe 5 or 6, and I've started actually to send them to publishers. I had a lot of no, but maybe one of these days I have a yes, and it would be so nice, if at least one of these stories could become an actual object. It could become a book, and it would be a physical thing that remains from that time when she was young, and when she was somewhere between 3 and 4, and it would be a nice piece of memory of her childhood. I would love for at least one of them to happen.
I'll tell you what, Mickaelle, when you publish your first book, I promise to be your first customer.
That's nice. But you are not quite the targeted audience, so I'm not sure how much you can enjoy it.
Are you ready for the lightning round questions? Quick and easy, just like visual effects.
All right, let's go.
What is a perfect one-day getaway in Lyon, Avengen, Rhône, Alps?
Oh, okay. It's the region is called Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes, but it's okay. You can just say Lyon.
I was doing my best English interpretation.
Yeah, it's complicated. Well, usually in non-COVID time, I would say you have to go to a restaurant, because Lyon is supposed to be, I don't know where that comes from exactly, but it's supposed to be the main city in France for gastronomy, and France is always renowned for its gastronomy. So we have a lot of really good restaurants there, and you can have such a good time having a wonderful meal. But now the restaurants have been closed for 4 months, I think, and I don't know when they're going to reopen. And so normally you do that, and you can have a walk around the city. It's quite a nice city, because there are 2 rivers going through the city, and this is they meet in the city, and the city is built around that. So it's really quite nice when you have a nice sunshine, and they've made the borders of the rivers quite nice for people to walk around. So usually you could do that, just walk around, go to a nice restaurant, maybe go to a museum. But these days it's probably better to just try to escape the city a little bit more. And they are around quite close to Lyon. There are many places where you can go for beautiful hikes. So if you don't want to go too far, you can go like 45 minutes to the west, and there are some high hills / small mountains. You can't really call it a mountain yet, but there are some beautiful places to go for a walk. And if you can drive a bit more, you can go 2 hours east, and there you have the Alps. And I was actually there last weekend. We went for the day, and it's quite warm here. It feels almost like a little bit more like a springy than proper winter. Mm-hmm. But up there in the mountain, there's still some snow, and it was just amazing, those landscapes and the dramatic cliffs, and you have the snow everywhere. And because my daughter is 4 years old now, a little bit more, we can go on proper walks. We can walk with her for 3 to 4 hours. So you can, we love to do that. Just go in the nature and have a beautiful walk and enjoy the beauty of the nature around you.
So if COVID weren't going on right now and I were to fly down to Lyon, what restaurant would you take me to? What would your recommendation be?
Oh God, I don't have a name at hand, but we've tried a few. What we try to do these days is because we are adults and we have everything we need, we don't really get presents for each other because we don't need anything. We have everything we need. So we take each other to the restaurant usually. So it's such a nice thing to do. You know, you prepare yourself in advance and you look at the list of Michelin star restaurant. Usually it's 1 or 2 Michelin star, and you try to find a good place, and I mean, it's a present to the other, but it's a present to yourself as well. You raise up the expectation for yourself. And I don't have a name at hand, but what I really like personally when I go to a restaurant, I like to be surprised. I like to experience something that could never happen at home. So you know, have some textures that you don't expect, some ingredients that you never came across, some association of taste, and I mean, sometimes it can feel too expensive because spending I don't know, 150 euros on a meal can seem nonsense to certain people. But usually when you spend that amount of money, and I mean, we don't, I mean, sometimes it's a bit cheaper, but never mind. You stay there for like 3 or 4 hours. So it's not about just putting some food inside your body to fuel it. It's an experiment. It's an experience. I mean, you have all those sensations, and usually the place is quite nice, and you feel good, and it's also a very nice moment we can have together because there's nothing around you. There isn't the day-to-day life telling you that, oh, this needs fixing and this needs cleaning and this needs doing, and you just the two of you together, and you're in that little bubble, and you can just, you know, talk about life, talk about the things you don't talk about usually because there's no time for it, and it's all about the moment. So if you were to come to Lyon, I'd have a billion restaurants I want to take you to, but I'd have to choose one. But usually I rely on Michelin stars to, you know, start somewhere, unless someone recommended it to me. But it's quite a good guide, and you know that if there are some stars in there, the food has to be nice.
What video game or app are you using on your phone that is the most fun?
Okay, so I wouldn't call it fun. I don't use my phone very much, but I guess what I use the most is just WhatsApp to stay in touch with the family, because I live 4 hours drive away from my family. So we see each other every, I don't know, 2-3 months or something. And this is such a nice way to keep in touch and share the little everyday things that are not really important. But I don't know, sometimes I'll send it's mostly about the kids usually, but or something you cooked maybe, or maybe, you know, a nice light in the garden, or, oh, look, it's been snowing last night, or, you know, just the little everyday things that are not really important. but it keeps you close to the people you care for, basically.
What is your favorite thing to cook or eat?
Well, I may have mentioned that I quite like going to the restaurant and I enjoy that. So that, just eating something that surprises me is really good. And usually if it's at home, it's more about eating than cooking because my partner does all the cooking. It used to be more of a shared thing, but ever since our daughter was born, I started to, because I'm a bit more patient, so I was the one doing the feeding, because that can last forever when they're young. And then we got into that pace of, he was doing the cooking and was taking care of the feeding the child. And the more he cooked, the better he got at it, and the less practice I had, and the less I felt like I was up to his level. So I really prefer it when he's the one cooking, because every time I'm like, oh, I've made some fuel. Let's eat that thing now.
What is your favorite book or podcast you've listened to recently?
I've finished a book. Oh God, I don't have the name of the author. It was called. Oh no, I can't even translate it. I can just talk about the pitch. Maybe it's just it's a book that people around me know that I love reading, so I get a lot of books I didn't buy. And it's quite nice because you're always surprised. You don't know what to expect. You just grab a book and you go, oh, okay, I'll read that. Let's find out what it's about. And this one is about, it's quite grim actually. It's about somewhere in the 80s, a girl that gets approached by someone who tells her she's really good at dancing, and she could have that. How do you say that in English? Like some money to help you, fulfill your dreams and go to that the place and the schools you want to. How do you call that? Well, but you see what I mean. Just getting some funds or something like that to help you with your projects. And actually, this is all a scheme to for aged men to do horrible things to young girls.
Aww.
So this is well, actually it's not too descriptive, so it's not too grim, but it's more about then how she grew on out of that as an adult and all the other girls. So this is the last book I read. Something really happy. And aside of that, in terms of podcasts, I quite like to listen to scientific podcasts on the radio, just a French radio. It's I can't say that I understand everything really, because often also if you listen to that while you're working, you can't your mind goes elsewhere and you don't listen to the whole thing. But it's so interesting, like just something that teaches you about something you don't know about. I really quite like this kind of program.
Your favorite video game visual effect you're jealous of that is not your own?
I haven't played it yet, but I've seen some reels, and that's Control. I love the VFX in Control. It's just it's really unique, I think. It's not something you've seen a billion times, and it's really, I don't know, there's something, it's really well blended together, and I really love the effects. When I finish Zelda, I don't know when that's going to happen, I really want to play Control because I want to see more of their effects. And I also love the effects back in Alan Wake. I remember this is really old, but this is when I was starting in VFX, and I was just blown away because they have a way of really blending everything together with the animation and the post process, and you can't really tell the effects apart from everything. It just really flows together so nicely.
What is some advice that you would give to a first-time visual effects artist or people looking to get into the industry?
I'd say probably be honest and be humble, because from what I see, the juniors tend to be very defensive usually because they take things too personally, and maybe they don't always understand, the range of their skills and how much they still can learn. But I think it's more the defensiveness really comes from it's hard to receive some criticism, and you just have to learn that this is not you that's being criticized. This is just the work, and we're working together to make it better. And I think being humble and admitting what you don't know is important as well. Nobody knows everything, and especially as a junior, you're not expected to know everything. So don't pretend, and just be honest, and you'll come across as someone that can be trusted. And then it's okay. The things you don't know, you're going to learn, and people are going to help you, and it's all going to be fine. And I think, sorry.
Go on.
And I think what I would say as well is make something that is really your own. I mean, making fan art is probably really helpful to understand and analyze, because as you try to replicate, you really did it, and it teaches you a lot. But these days, I have the feeling that I see the same things all the time. I see tornadoes, and I see laser beams, and I see twisting projectiles, and some of them are really well done, but I'm tired of seeing these things personally. I mean, this is really a personal note, and I'm sorry for the people who are working on a tornado or laser beam, but I mean, in my career, I never had to do a tornado for a game, ever. So I don't know why this happened. I guess it just looks quite cool, so everyone wants something quite dramatic in their show reel, but everyone's doing a tornado. But just try to do something different. Try to do something that speaks to you and is unique. And I think suddenly, if you see something that you've never seen before, this is how you're going to catch someone's attention, by doing something really dear to you and personal. And it tells a lot about you as well.
Any final thoughts to say, or anything you want to plug or promote? People, projects, games?
I guess I think I'd like to, if that's okay, I'd like to take a moment to talk a little bit about women in games. So this is there are some groups in all countries about that, and I first came across it many years ago when I was still living in the UK. And I saw on LinkedIn that one of my female colleagues joined the Women in Games group on LinkedIn. And I thought, what a bunch of nonsense, because I thought, this is not how I define myself. I'm a developer, and I happen to be a woman, but I don't want to define myself as a woman. I thought it was a very odd thing. And years later, I was actually introduced by two women in games, and I really understood what they were doing. And I understood that my first impression was just completely wrong. And so what they are trying to do is, I mean, this is a fact. There are way less women. This is very man-driven industry. There are very few women in the industry, and they're just trying to find ways to have more diversity in the video games industry. And when I got in touch with them, suddenly I understood that just doing my job and doing nothing else, just existing and doing my job every day, was almost like a militant act of sorts. Just because I exist, then it's telling others that yes, this is something that you can do. Some people might say that if you really want to work in game and you're a woman, nothing prevents you from doing it. But I would say that society really, from a very young age, society is shaping men and women and telling them what they should be and what they should do and what they shouldn't do. And I think that many women probably don't consider going to technical jobs, just because everything since they were born was telling them this is for guy, and they won't even think about it. It's not that they will not fight hard enough to get in the industry. It's just that it might not even cross their mind because it seems like something that is out of reach for them. And so the people at Women in Game made me realize that just giving a talk here and there every now and again, and just talking about my job, talking about what I'm passionate about, it can make you act as a role model. And maybe some young girls or women might think, oh, actually, I never thought of that. Maybe I could work in games too. And yeah, you can just help them see that it's possible for them. And maybe for the few guys that think that this should be a male-driven industry, if you talk about your job and you understand your job and you know what you're doing, maybe it can make them open their mind a little bit and realize that this is not a gender specific industry and anyone can do it. And this is this is not something I really understood after a long time, but I just try to help whenever I can, every now and again, just discuss it a little bit and just do some presentations when I can, and hopefully that's going to inspire some young students, and especially if I can inspire them to go to VFX, that's going to be the best. It's not just about women; it's also bringing VFX people. I mean, you know what? My partner the other day, he was teaching at a school, game design school. And out of all the students, only one of them wanted to do VFX. And I don't know why, even now that there are more resources and everything, people forget that this is something that really exists as a career. And I guess this is why as well there's such a high demand for VFX. It's just it doesn't get taught very much in schools, and it doesn't feel like an obvious career path.
Well, I'll start with the VFX part. The challenge there is that we don't have instructors to teach VFX in formal education systems because they're all working, and the education systems aren't going to pay the same amount of money to a professional VFX worker who wants to be a teacher. So that is challenging in itself. I want to just piggyback off of your women's in the games industry, because I do think it is a very important component to have that diversity there. I will say as a man, though, sometimes I'm not sure if I should broach that subject, but as a podcaster, I do like to bring diversity onto the show. Having women and men and people of color has always been super important to get different perspectives. And Rachel Day, one of our previous podcast guests, who is a woman, has always pitched other people to come on the show so that we can showcase the different types of talent that exists. And one of the areas I've always been wondering about, so maybe if you can point me in the direction, or any of our listeners, is maybe a woman of color, whether she's Asian or Black, because I haven't met anybody in that area in the games industry, and it would be great to get them on the show someday.
Oh yeah, I need to remember her day. I met her when I was at GDC in 2018. I met a girl from Blizzard, and we had a really good chat. And I can't remember her name right now, but I'll find it for you later. I would love her to be on the show because we had such a good chat, because they were. This was such a nice evening. The guys who organized the oh god, I'm getting tired. I can't find my words. The guys who organized that day, where it's all full of VFX presentation. In the evening, they found some sponsorship, and everyone was invited to have some drinks together. So all the VFX artists from GDC were there in that one room, and it was such a wonderful moment seeing all those people, and actually spent a good part of the evening outside just chatting with her, because inside the music was too loud, and we had such a good time. I'll find her name for you, and I really hope she's going to be in one of your next podcasts.
Rock on. Mickaelle, it has been an absolute pleasure sitting here chatting with you. You have so much to offer the table, and we're so grateful for the hard work and effort you put out there for artists across the world. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you a lot for having me. I'm, really honored to be part of the list.
What an awesome interview with Mickaelle. And there's something about the French accent that's so attractive. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I hope you're doing well in this spring season. Another thing I just want to remind you about is to like and share this podcast. There's so many people here in the US and internationally who we want to be involved in this conversation. Again, if you have somebody you want to be on the show, this is all about diversity. So let's get men, women, people of color, people who are fresh in their careers, people who are veterans on so we can hear their stories. I'm really excited to be bringing 2 very special episodes up next. Some people that you have heard a lot about and who I might consider masters of teaching. Until next time, rock on.